Hi everyone. So we have a couple of people joining in. A very warm welcome to all of you. Um, uh, as we're having more and more people joining us, a very warm welcome to all of you. Two, if you, we would love to know all of you. So if you're a small business owner, if you're an enterprise business owner, to all the attendees over here, feel free to pitch in your business in the chat box below. We'd love to see your websites. We'd love to explore your products. We'd love to see your Instagram handles. We'd love to follow all of them. We start in 5-5. Till then, awaiting all of your responses. We have rubberfry.com. Hi, rubberfry.com. My volume is too low. Anshuk, Naman, could you confirm if it's better now?
Yes, Anisha, we are able to hear you.
Got it. Thank you. We have Deepika Nagpal also. Welcome, Deepika Nagpal. Welcome, rubberfly.com. Looking forward to seeing more brand names in the chat box below. We'd love to know your products too. We'd love to follow your Instagrams. Feel free to engage as much as possible over here. So we have an Amikya over here who is yet to launch her own brand. We look forward to providing you insights in this session. And we hope we are helpful to you in some way or the other. So we have a couple of participants over here. We can go live to all the attendees present over here. A very warm welcome to all of you once again. My name is Anisha. I am a senior marketing executive at Adyogi. This is Adyogi in collaboration with the Clickpost team, and we will talk about the complicated toxic love story between RTOs and ROAS. We have Naman with us. We have Anshuk, our founder from Adyogi team. Small introduction about Anshuk, small introduction about Naman. Anshuk is our founder at Adyogi. He joined IS. He is an ISB alumni and IIT Bombay alumni. He started Adyogi in 2006. A small note on Naman.
Thanks, Anisha. I'll just give an introduction myself. So I'm Naman, co-founder at Clickpost, started Clickpost in 2017. Before that, we were just brainstorming ideas around supply chain and e-commerce. So I was there with my best friend, Prashant, and we ended up launching Clickpost in 2017. We work mostly with D2C brands, enterprises going omni-channel. We help them improve their supply chain strategy, help them improve the post-purchase customer experience. And it's really good to be here with Anshuk. I think it's probably the first time our teams are interacting this closely over the past 5-6 years. Although I remember like when I was starting out, people used to tell me that you were probably also in the early days at that time, that there's another company, Adyogi, focusing more towards the marketing side of things and direct to consumer. We were focusing more towards the supply chain side of things. So good to finally like do some things together, and yeah, good to kind of like build the ecosystem together as well.
Absolutely, Naman. I think I always tell people that there is no dearth of excitement if you are in the e-commerce industry. Every 6 months, we get to experience something very different. So very happy to be a part of the same ecosystem. Of course, Clickpost has been is a name which we keep coming across when I talk to a lot of my clients. And very happy to be on this forum together and talk about, like Anisha mentioned, ROS and RTO. Both are sort of go in opposite direction when it comes to an e-commerce store.
Yep, it's exciting times. Honestly, like when we were starting up, that was 2016. I think that was the last funding winter you can call in the Indian startup ecosystem. And now we are here and like everyone's talking about another fundraising winter, another market recession, brands kind of like tightening their belts. So yeah, let's initially would just love to know your thoughts. What are you seeing on the ground? How's the market looking up from a marketing standpoint? Like, are brands kind of like going towards cash conservation? What's happening out there?
Right. So exactly, we want to know the audience's thoughts also over here, which is why we have a poll of questions on your screen right now. We'd love to know what do you understand by RTOs, and we have a couple of questions. Feel free to engage and let us know. Uh, the questions are on your screen. What is your current business life cycle stage? Or is it a launch stage, which is 100 to 200 orders a month, growth stage 200 to 500 orders a month, maturity stage greater than 500 orders a month? Second question, which will also help us understand your brand better, understand the requirement of the webinar better, is what is the most preferred way to reduce RTO percent according to you guys? Is it the NDR automation? Is it customer communication? Is it converting COD to prepaid, or is it centralized NDR calling team? I hope everyone has put their votes. In class, could we have the results of the polls? So majority of us are at the growth stage where we are ranging around 200 to 5 orders a month, which is a very decent number. And we believe converting COD to prepaid is the most preferred way to reduce RTOs. Our panelists would throw more light on this. I can already see a wide smile on Anshuk's face. Over to you, Anshuk and Naman. Go ahead. We look forward to the candid conversation between you guys.
And that was interesting to know, like interesting to know the audience, and interesting to see people believing more and more in online payments and trying to get everyone onto prepaid rather than COD. So Anshuk, like, what's happening on the ground? How's the market looking up?
Yes, absolutely, Naman. That's a question I get to answer every 3 months. And incidentally, the answer changes every 3 months. So, but very interesting. We are seeing some, because we are on the marketing side of the business. And I personally, we have worked with around 300 plus e-commerce stores. I personally interact with around 100 plus founders on a quarterly basis. So I get to hear a lot from them about what's happening in their businesses. And some of it I would be happy to share today. So few key trends we have seen in the last, I would say, couple of quarters, which has impacted the e-commerce vertical. The first of those, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience can also relate to that, is the whole iOS 14 impact. And I know many of you would have heard your founder peers talk about it, your agency founders or agency counterparts talk about it, but not really understand fully what that is. So maybe I'll spend a minute on that. So what happened in last year, somewhere around April, which is 2021 April, is Apple announced a small change in its policy, where they said instead of opting out of, let's say, firing or sending information to apps like Facebook, now users will have to opt in sending that information, right? Now, many people felt that it was a very small change, opt out versus opt in. We also at Adyogi did that mistake. We just felt it's a small change. So many things keep happening. But little did we realize that the impact was significant, because later on when the data actually started pouring in, not more than 30 to 35% of users actually opted in, which means for a majority of the Apple users, which are using Safari or let's say Facebook app on their iOS devices, they were not able to send data to Facebook, which effectively means that less remarketing, less optimization, and that impacted the Facebook acquisition costs. So that was a major change which we saw. We saw that across board for a lot of advertisers, the cost of acquisition on Facebook actually went up. In some cases, it went up by as high as 10%, 20%, or even 30%. So one key change is that we'll talk more about as we go along. We also saw that the second key change is in 2021, of course, a lot of shopping moved online. But last 6 months, as the malls opened up, as COVID actually the third wave receded, we saw that a lot of retail brands we used to work with, they saw that the shift went from online to offline back, which means that we found that they were less aggressive on scaling their online. We saw that their offline stores suddenly picked up very rapidly. A lot of users who were earlier going to websites to make a purchase for a retail brand started again preferring offline stores. So that was the second key trend which we saw in the last 6 months. But I feel the most important one, which I'm sure you also referred to, Naman, in the start of the discussion, is actually the funding winter which we have now started experiencing. So some of the brands which you work with are DTC, direct to consumer, online only brands. And for them, we have seen that many of them are actually VC funded. They actually started to become a little more conservative in their spending, purely because there's a lot of news in the market that the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months may not be the best from a fundraising perspective. So we also saw like Y Combinator sending this guidance to all the founders that if you don't have an 18-month runway, then you might as well start to conserve cost, right? So we saw some of the brands we work with trying to conserve cost. And one of the biggest costs today is the marketing cost. So their expectation of return on ad spend actually became more aggressive in the last 3 months, which means that for me, the job has become only more difficult. So that's something which I wanted to talk about today. Yes, but Naman, over to you in case you want to add something to that.
No, very interesting how you initially said a small change from Apple, which has got like repercussions for all the businesses across the world. And I feel like the privacy wars or the data wars have just started between like the big tech companies, and everyone will jump onto new playgrounds, and there would be new things that would keep on coming up, whether that be from Google or Apple or Facebook. Like previously, one just used to worry about what's the Google policy update for SEO and all. Now everyone will need to keep tabs on mobile providers as well and their policy updates as well. And as you referred, like jobs are getting more challenging because people are getting more demanding whenever there is, and it's a cycle, right? Like we have been in business long enough, we have seen these growth cycles and downturns, and like at one point of time you're just focusing on growth, and then you're kind of like streamlining the entire business. Right now we are, I think, in that phase where everyone is looking towards streamlining their business. Supply chain is always catching up to what like the P&L demands. So in fact, we are seeing more and more investment coming into supply chain because like the cost of fulfillment and the cost of delivering a good experience, like your existing customer retention becomes even more important when you want to conserve costs at all costs, right? So yeah, seeing some of the similar things, and even as you mentioned, like a lot of the funded startups or the funded D2C brands, which was all the craze till like 2-3 years back, everyone wanted to put more and more money into new age brands. That has kind of shifted. So I would say our customer base used to be like 70% of our customers were direct to consumer brands till like before COVID. And if we look now, I think that number would be like 25% and decreasing. So it's more and more companies who are like either choosing to go the bootstrapped way, if they're new age brands, or the more significant thing that we're seeing is people going omni-channel. So it's no longer the case of just being online only. I'd love to know your thoughts over there as well. Like, of course, being on the marketing front, direct to consumer, I'm sure would have been like a huge channel for some of the brands for you. But as you said, like the purchase behavior is shifting towards offline again. So how are you seeing the impact? Like, are you seeing brands going more omni-channel, and do you even suggest them to go more omni-channel, or do you think like still the winners would be the ones who focus on online only till like a very, very late stage?
So that's a very, very interesting question. In fact, I'll tell you a small incident from like say 3 years ago. So this was like somewhere around 2019, and I was sitting with the owner of one of the brands called Malmal. So shopmalmal.com. I think some of the viewers or some of our attendees might have seen this brand showcase their ads on Facebook and Instagram. So fairly like premium women fashion brand. They sell kurtis at average price points of around 8,000, 9,000 rupees. So I was sitting with the owner of this brand. His name is Harsh. And he had this one question for me, Naman. He asked, Anshuk, should I focus on opening offline stores, right? And at that point in time, Malmal was only 1 or 2 years into its inception. And we were debating, and honestly, I didn't have a clear answer either. I didn't want to sound ignorant in front of him, so I kind of put my consultant hat on and somehow said that let's do a pilot, just like what consultants tell when they don't have a clear answer. And I told him, why don't we just give it a try, right? And if you get good results, then maybe that's the way to go, right? Today, 3 years into it, 2022, I think the answer is a resounding yes. Any brand today which is online only should try and go offline if possible. And we have seen clear benefits in the case of Malmal. Like, for example, when they first opened their stores in New Delhi, that's where they started from. We saw that their sales in the region increased. The share of sales coming from NCR actually went up. We also saw a lot of customers coming into the store who said that we have seen your ad on Facebook and Google, but of course we wanted to experience the product first before we purchased it, right? So we saw this cross-channel effects where you are promoting your online website, but people actually find that you have a store in NCR and they just travel to the mall just to come to your store. And then they say, look, I've seen these 3 products. We actually had customers walk into the store with screenshots of images that, do you have this product and can I try it, right? And then, of course, they went on from NCR, they opened their stores in Bombay, now they've opened in Bangalore and Hyderabad. And every time they have stores opening up, their sales from that region will go up, right? I would also go to the extent of saying that omnichannel is not only DTC and offline. We also advise our brands today to consider marketplaces along with DTC, right? Now, this was an open question, which again, Malmal and many other brands had for me, that if I have a website, should I be present on Nykaa or should I be selling on Myntra? Will it cannibalize my sales on the website, right? And what we have noticed is, no, it doesn't cannibalize. On the contrary, it actually helps you build both verticals. So think of it as like 360-degree marketing. And we have seen cases where if you advertise on Facebook and Google for your DTC website, your sales on Amazon and Nykaa go up. And there is a vice versa also happening. If you're present on Amazon and Nykaa, we actually saw the brand searches on google.com go up. So we did a pilot with one of the clients where we measured the volume of sales coming from brand searches, and we saw a clear uptick of around 20 to 22% after their presence on marketplaces, right? So, in long story short, yes, omnichannel is the way to go. So today, any brand which comes to us, which is online only and only on their website, we typically suggest them to go omnichannel. And of course, it's a journey. You may not want to go omnichannel right from day one. You may want to first build maybe the first 100, 500 orders a month sort of attraction, and then think about going omnichannel. So that's what I have seen. Naman, what have you seen from, let's say, a supply chain perspective? Any more thoughts you have on that?
It's definitely, like, omnichannel is the buzzword in supply chain, right? And as I said, supply chain folks are kind of like catching up to the new innovations that marketing folks bring up. Suddenly, I think when you guys started telling brands that you need to be omnichannel, it introduced a new thing in the lives of supply chain folks. Like, how do we fulfill orders? Now there are people buying from stores, there are people buying from our website, there are people buying from marketplaces. They expect a similar sort of experience everywhere. They don't want to hear that, I saw this thing on your website, it's not there in the store, or I saw this thing in your store once, but I see it's out of stock on the website. So those kind of things are there, like, which has made omnichannel very interesting for supply chain. And on the very opposite end of the spectrum from the story that you said about Malmal, I would point to, like, we have customers like Aditya Birla Group, Arvind Group, the original large house of brands in India. And even at the peak of COVID, I remember, like, coming out of the Delta wave in India, these large enterprises, they're focusing more and more on how to give better experience to consumers when they'll start visiting the stores again. And at that time, we were, in fact, like, we were surprised that these guys are thinking about, people coming back to stores and what kind of experience they would want to deliver to them, and how do they want to use the stores as sort of like even fulfillment centers. But like, we've worked with them for over 12 months now on kind of like implementing the perfect flows for fulfillment via stores, return to stores, and all the interesting things that can stitch together the experience for a brand that is present both offline and online. And as you said, marketplaces as well, like some of these brands have started getting more and more data from marketplaces. They've started like pushing a better customer experience or branded customer experience. Even in things like electronics, like warranties and all, many of time they are owned by the brand, even though you might be purchasing the item from the marketplace. So all of these things, like if you stitch them together, like that's what the perfect customer experience looks like. And omnichannel has kind of given that advantage to brands who are more tech friendly to kind of like give that better customer experience to the new age consumer. So interesting times, and I think it would keep on increasing as we like go towards the future. We are now we are now listening to pop-up stores and other kind of stores coming in, and everyone would find out new methods of using their like offline stores as dark stores and so on and so on. So interesting times, yeah.
Absolutely, Naman. Totally agree with you there. Naman, now that you mentioned about using the store for delivery for the omni-channel, right? I had a question there. So you must be interacting with a lot of founders and a lot of brands, right? So how many of them are actually omni-channel today? Because omni-channel has been a buzzword for many years now. Last 2-3 years, I've been hearing it. But what percentage of them have you seen actually being omni-channel versus, let's say, just trying to go omni-channel?
Let's put it this way, and as you said, it's a journey for a brand, right? Like when you are at 100-200 orders a month, you would never think of, unless you come from like a legacy family-run business that has offline stores, you won't think of offline stores at that stage. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, like when we talk to founders or like entrepreneurs who are doing around 1,000 orders a day, all of them are investing very aggressively into like getting to offline stores, right? Your first strategy might be to get into like shops like Shopper Stop, lifestyle stores and all, not have your own individual stores, but very quickly you pivot to like having your own stores as well. And even the marketplace, as you look at what Nykaa has done with the kind of brand that they have been able to build with their Nykaa Luxe and Nykaa On Trend and multiple different kinds of stores, to even very new age brands like people selling t-shirts, Big Proof and Soul Store and these guys who were proponents of online only for like a long time. Now they are also focusing on more and more like going towards stores. So I think as you grow up in your business and as you have money that you can invest into like getting into good places, you have to be like omni-channel. Like that is absolutely the way to go, and that is how you'll be able to build your brand as well, which is the biggest thing in direct consumer as well.
Absolutely. So Anisha has been poking me and saying, talk about ROAS and RTO. That's the topic of the webinar. Don't talk about omnichannel so much. So let's probably go with what she is recommending me. Naman, I think just because the topic on your screen says relation between ROAS and RTO, right? And I know I have my own version to that answer, but maybe I want to hear from you first, right? What do you think is the relation between ROAS and RTO, or anything you can throw light which connects the two buzzwords together?
Yes. So even when we're discussing the topic for this webinar, many times marketing and supply chain, like they sit very independent of each other, right? Supply chain folks might be sitting in the warehouse and they might not even be talking to the marketing folks on the P&L level. Like when you talk about customer acquisition, which is like the closest thing, the customer acquisition cost, the return on ad spend versus the customer retention cost. Even when like you must have targets related to repeat purchases that sit with you or the marketing folks, but the service experience, the delivery experience sits with the supply chain folks. And these two guys, if they don't work in conjunction with each other, like you can't expect that the consumer will buy again from you if you like deliver a bad customer experience. While if you deliver a good customer experience, the customer will come back again and again to you. It's very natural. All of us are in a world where people are ready to experiment new things, but we demand more and more from like customer service in today's world. We want better delivery experience, we want a better product, we want good return policies, and all of those have an impact on kind of like the blended ROS. So I think that would be my perspective, and that's why we see that even though when we talk to head of supply chains, they might just talk about RTO rates, but when you talk to founders and CXOs, they're always looking at customer retention rate. That how can I improve my customer retention rate overall? And that's why customer experience plays such an important role rather than just trying to optimize my logistics cost, right? So that's what we have kind of like seen. But yeah, would love to know your thoughts. What do marketing folks think? What do people talking to you think of RTOs and return on ad spend?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you two frequent interactions I have in the brands I work with. So one type of interaction is when I go on the owner of, I go on a call with, let's say, the owner of a brand, right? And here the brand is kind of, the owner is asking me, Anshuk, so what has been the performance like? And of course, I have my teams to support me also. So typically the answer comes from our side is, look, we spent XX lakh on marketing. And as per what we can see, you are able to get like a 4x sale on the Shopify website. So we are talking about a 4x ROS. So things look quite hunky-dory. 4x is a good ROS in the industry. And we say that most of the brands of Adyogi get a 4x ROS. And we expect the brand to be quite satisfied and happy about it. But the moment we complete our pitch, right, and the answer from there comes, okay, what you're talking about 4x or let's say 4 lakh sales is actually not right, because that's a gross number. But when I see on my screen, my net sales are like 2.5 lakh. So you are talking about delivering a 2.5x ROS, and how do you expect us to be profitable at a 2.5x ROS? So this is a typical conversation which I have with a lot of brand owners. And that's why I believe that ROS and RTO are very closely linked, because in today's world, we all know that the acquisition costs have actually gone up, right? And I spoke about in the beginning that, look, there was an iOS 14 impact, or sales are moving offline back again. So we generally see for most brands today that the acquisition cost has somewhere in the range of 600 to 800, right? INR, right? And that's the range we see across, let's say, 80% of our brands. Of course, there are anomalies on both sides, right? The question is very simple, that if you're paying Facebook 600 to 800 rupees for every new customer acquired, so how would you make your business profitable, right? And the answer, in my opinion, is most businesses on the first purchase struggle to become profitable. Businesses which have stayed with us for the longer period of time or which are scaled online are the ones which are able to make their customers come back again and again and make a purchase. Because when you get your customer back on the website, you might be doing that via SMS, email, WhatsApp. The cost of an SMS, email, WhatsApp is minuscule compared to the cost of Facebook ads, right? So you might be investing 1/10 in your marketing, and you might be getting that additional order from the customer which is coming back. So today for a DTC brand, I think being able to increase the repeat customer percentage is probably one of the biggest levers you can pull to actually sustain and be profitable. And I feel that the supply chain or the post-purchase experience is a very, very important role to play to increase your repeat customers. RTO is probably just one portion of the entire chain, which is how I feel they are very closely connected.
It's a very interesting way to think of it, because like when you put it that way, and immediately, like I kind of started thinking of, businesses which are transactional businesses versus businesses that are relationship businesses, right? So transactional businesses, think of like people selling a house, right? If you once sold a house, you're probably never going to do it again in your life, and you're not going to do it with the same person again, right? Versus something that is more of a relationship driven business, where you are going to continuously get into business with that with your customer again and again and again. And if you think about customer experience, like when somehow in e-commerce, I think it's only now we've started to realize that it's a relationship business. It's not something that you can just expect to get the person to transact once on your website and get happy about it. Like, it's so much about how much can you retain that customer, what's the lifetime value of that customer. Only and only then are you going to be profitable with that customer, right? Otherwise, like, you just spend those $600 and the person probably bought like a 500 rupees t-shirt out of it. That's as good as handing over $100 to that person, right? So if you start thinking about profitability from day one, retention, customer experience, the value, I think in just your psyche itself increases so much. And that's why, like, I think more and more focus is being given to customer experience. So, yeah, like, I think very interesting to think of it in terms of like a P&L perspective overall. And when you look at like the blended cost of customer acquisition over there.
Yes, so true. So one of the questions, Naman, which I thought this is a great opportunity for me to ask you that, which clients ask me every time, right? And they say that, look, Anshuk, what is a good RTO percentage? Some brands tell me I have 10% and they ask me the question. Some brands tell me I have 30% and they ask me the question. And I'm always at loss of words because I just feel, okay, is 10% good? Is 30% good? So can I pick your brains on that? That what do you think are the typical RTO percentages and what is a good and a bad RTO percentage?
Yes, this is the first question that everyone asks us as well. Like, everyone is kind of like looking for that perfect paradise, that what would that promised land look like? What would be my ideal RTO percentage? I think the answer is very different based on category as well as the stage of the business you are in. So I would just like do some segmentation over here as well. I think if you're into, like, let's say sort of a medicine sort of a business, there ideally your RTO rate should be 2%, 3%, even less than that, because that's something that people only buy when they have a genuine need of, right? While on the other hand, if you are into, let's say, selling ethnic fashion, right? Ethnic fashion, again, in very early days, your RTO rate might be 10%, 12%, even higher, because you might be experimenting a lot with the kind of audience that you are looking at. But at scale, ideally, your RTO rate in ethnic fashion should be somewhere around 5-6%, right? But if you flip it, and if you're selling, if you're selling to college-going kids, if you're selling like fast fashion, then your RTO rate would definitely be higher, right? Because people are experimenting more and people will change their mind more. But again, like at scales, even that should be less than 10%. If look at it this way, if I was starting a direct consumer business today, I would aim that my RTO rate should be less than 10%. Right? It would not be the case all the time. There are categories where we have seen brands starting from 25-30% of RTO rate, and then at scales hit that 10% number. So it's also about like when you decide to focus upon it, when you kind of figure out the right strategy. But yeah, like you should aim for a less than 10% RTO rate, because that is definitely doable across all categories. We have customers across different categories who are working on those numbers. It would be higher for marketplaces. Marketplaces in India are dealing at like 25-30% RTO rate easily, because they're even like they're trying to scale faster. They are selling to new consumers. Direct to consumer, you're kind of like playing in the field which has been created by marketplaces, right? Marketplaces bring in new customers online, and then when they're used to purchasing online, direct consumer can go and sell to them. So I noticed a question from someone in chat as well, that for cosmetics, like what should be the RTO rate? Again, cosmetics, we've seen brands at 5% around RTO rates, but we've also seen brands who started in the early days at 18%, 20% RTO rate, right? So I think you will go through that journey. So don't be scared of it, essentially. But yeah, like your aim, your benchmark should be sub 10% RTO rate, definitely.
Got it. Sub 10% actually sounds very, very good to me, Naman, because I must acknowledge that when I talk to brands, most of them, very few of them give me a sub 10% number. I've usually heard a number around 15%, 20%. There was this one client who once told me I have an RTO of like 40%. And I was just thinking on my mind that this is a high risk of attrition for Adyogi because no matter the kind of ROS we give to this client, with an RTO percentage of 40%, nothing is going to work out, right? So help me understand. Let's say I'm a business and I'm not fortunate enough, like some of your clients, having a sub 10% RTO. Let's say I'm that unlucky one who has a 30% RTO. So how do I go about figuring out what to do, or what are the top reasons you have seen for RTO? And because if I know the top reasons, I can probably have some strategy to kind of cater to it. So what do you think? What would be the top reasons for my business having such a high RTO?
Definitely. So I think, okay, let me answer that very quickly in 3 different buckets, right? Your RTO rate is happening either because your customer changed their mind, purchase regret, or there was a terrible experience in last mile delivery. It can either be, delays or no communication or something like that, or there's something that happened wrong on the ground, right? They were not at home at that time, they were in the office, and the delivery person went and tried to deliver the order. So these are primarily like the 3 different reasons why you will have RTOs. And the quicker you figure out why those RTOs are happening, the more you'll be able to strategize better, right? So if you're able to figure out that your RTOs are happening because they are like it's just a bad customer experience that you're delivering in the post-purchase journey, you can focus on that. While if your RTOs are happening because it's just majorly purchase regret, then it's probably the marketing team's like strategy that are not working out, that they were able to like get them to purchase, but like the person changed their mind. So just figure out which bucket your RTOs are lying in, and then you can look at optimizing that. And there are tools for that. Like there are certain analytics that are given by marketing tools. There are certain analytics that are given by your storefront tools. There are a lot of analytics given on the supply chain side with your warehouse management solution, with solutions like Clickpost and all. So you can like figure out the numbers, and then once you look at numbers, you'll have a much better like idea of what's happening over there. Like I would want to flip that around to you. So we've been talking about ideal RTO percentage, what's looking, what does it look like? What does it look like from a healthy ROS, like for different categories for market right now?
Yes, I think that's again a question. That's probably the first question I answer when I go on my sales pitch calls. I'll tell you, of course, ROS varies from category to category, right? But I can give you some benchmark numbers, which can help all the attendees out here. So typically, I'll tell you that if you're focusing on Facebook and Google ads, right? Facebook ads is the primary source of acquisition for most DTC brands today. And I'll tell you that on an average, to get a person from Facebook to your online website, the typical cost I've seen hovers around 10 to 15 rupees, which means one click from Facebook on your website costs around 10 to 15 rupees, right? And that's a benchmark I've seen across most brands. And most websites, whether they are Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, and in fact, I'll give you some numbers on Shopify. Most Shopify websites convert at not more than 2%, right? So what I mean is 100 people coming on the website, 2 people making the purchase, which effectively means to get one purchase on the website, roughly about 50 people have to come on the website, right? And cost of getting 50 people on the website based on just the previous number is 50 multiplied by 10 and 50 multiplied by 15, somewhere in that range, right? So it comes to around 500 to 750 rupees. And this is the blended, this is the cost of acquisition cost, which we have seen across, let's say, 80 to 90% of our clients. If I just remove the anomalies on both sides, 500 to 750 rupees is the acquisition cost. Okay. Now, once we know the acquisition cost, most likely for any of the attendees out here, if you have a business running primarily on Facebook, you would see Facebook or Instagram, I would say, you would see the acquisition cost fall in that bucket. Okay. Now, how do you estimate the ROAS? Right? So what we have seen is for most fashion apparel brands, which have average order values of roughly about 2,000 to 3,000, slightly on the premium side, I'm not talking about mass market, their ROS typically hovers around 4x. right? Because acquisition cost is 500, you have an average order value of 2000, so it's 4x. Or the acquisition cost is 750 and you have an average order value of 3000, it is 4x, right? For brands in the CPG space, if you are in consumer product space, if you probably are selling Ayurveda, or you're selling protein, health and wellness supplements, or let's say you're selling women hygiene products, something like a P-Safe or a Noah, right? Most of those categories have lower average order value. So they would have an average order value of, let's say around 400, 600, 800, somewhere around that range. It also is applicable for F&B industry. So packaged foods would also fall in that same category. There we have seen that the acquisition cost still hovers around 500 to 750. So just because you're selling a lower AOV product, Facebook is not going to spare you. Facebook will still give you the same cost of click, and the conversion rates will also remain in similar buckets. Now the question is, if you're paying 500 to 750 rupees to Facebook to acquire a customer, and your average order value itself is 600 or 700, then how do you make money, right? And the answer for that category lies purely in repeats. So the only way you can make money for a CPG brand or a health and wellness brand today is actually in the second or the third or the fourth purchase. On the first purchase, for most brands, we have seen that they bleed money, because if you're paying 700 to get 700, of course you have COGS, you have logistic costs, you have RTO costs, right? All of which are not accounted for. So in a nutshell, I would say for premium fashion, 4x, okay, ROS. For CPG, health and wellness, 1 to 1.5x ROS on the first purchase is what we have seen. So that's the range we have seen for ROS. I had a question. In fact, I want to probably jump back quickly to RTO before we probably continue. At what stage as a brand should I be worried about RTO? Because I know a lot of people out here was also mentioned this, one of the queries, that if you're doing 100 orders a day, should you really be focusing 100 orders a month, maybe, should you really be focusing on RTO, or when do you start focusing on RTO? Maybe Naman, if you have any thoughts on that.
It's very interesting that if you look at the fundamentals of the business, you should be aware about all of these things from day one, right? You cannot be like immune to thinking of that, okay, I'll think of it when I'm doing 1,000 orders or 2,000 orders a month. You have to start thinking of it from day one. However, like we would recommend that if you're in very early days, you talk more and more to the end customer, right? You build that relationship, you get that customer feedback. So many times we see that people who are doing, let's say, 50 orders a month, they don't want to do NDR calling because they're probably getting like 3-4 failed deliveries a day. They don't think it's worth it. But that's a chance for you to connect with your customer. So you start doing that manual calling, because definitely you're not going to be able to do it at scale, right? And at scale, you will have processes in place that will bring down your RTO rates. Just like you'll probably have processes in place that at scales, you'll increase your order value. You might start off with, let's say, 300 or 400. You'll do bundling of products. You'll do upselling. You'll get better at upselling to your customers. So your average order value will increase. Your RTO rates will decrease. However, in the very early days, focus on talking more and more to the end customer. Don't outsource it. Don't think it's not worth it. Talk to the end customer at every possible opportunity. Like get in front of them, give them a call on every failed delivery, give them a call on whenever they have a bad delivery experience. And that will allow you to kind of build processes that will kind of allow you to understand whether it's purchase, whether it's bad customer experience, whether it's, you know, delivery person not able to find the end customer, why are your RTOs happening? And then you can probably decide to invest on it at a later stage, but you have to understand the fundamentals of your business from very early stages. So like that's what we would tell every new brand as well. Understand your business, understand your customer, and then it's more of when you want to focus upon it, like you have the resources and bandwidth that you can like take some tough calls over there as well.
Absolutely, Naman. I think very, very interesting conversation, and I'm sure the ROS and RTO conversation can keep going on and on. But I thought maybe Anisha has been getting a little impatient, saying that, look, we have a lot of questions. I think the attendees would like us to get those questions answered as well. So while we continue our discussion, Naman, maybe on some other forum or probably when we meet in person, I want to just hand it over to Anisha quickly for the Q&A round.
Thanks, Anshuk. Very insightful, both of you. We have a couple of questions lined up in the Q&A section. We'll cover them one by one. To all the attendees present over here, feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen. We take them one by one. The first question is from an anonymous attendee who says, for a food and beverage brand, what is the minimum repeat percentage purchase percentage that ensures sustainability of a digital first brand? Whoever wants to take this up, over to you, Anshuk and Naman.
So I can take a tab at it, and of course, if Naman wants to add to it, we can do that. So I'll tell you the typical repeat percentages which we have seen for some of the brands we work with. On the apparel front, we have seen the highest as one of our brands we work with. It's called as Rare Rabbit, a house of rare, where we have seen repeat purchases of as high as 40%. Right? That, in my opinion, could be taken as the gold standard for apparel. But having said that, anything above 20 to 25 should be an okay repeat percentage for an apparel brand. I'll tell you why, because apparel are typically higher AOV categories, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. So even on a first customer acquisition, you may not be losing money. You might be making a little money. So a 25% or 30% repeat is considered as good from a profitability perspective. Now, when it comes to your F&B category, right, and you're talking about a digital first brand, F&B is usually lower average order values. So most of the F&B brands I have come across would be around 500, 700, 900, 1,000 average order values. Plus F&B by the nature of the industry is a high repeat, right? If you like a product, maybe it's a snacks brand, you may want to eat it again and again, every month, every 2 weeks, every 3 months, right? So typically for a brand in the F&B space, we would recommend repeat percentages as high as 50%. I know it sounds very, very high, but at those percentages, the marketing ROAS or the efficiency would actually start becoming profitable, because you would see that for your first customer acquisition, you might be pumping in a lot of money, but with so many people coming back again and again, you will see your bottom line becoming very profitable. So that was my input there. Anything, Naman, you would like to add there?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Like every brand owner needs to understand their order value, the kind of product that they're selling. Is it something that people buy once every year, or is it something that they buy again and again? Similarly to F&B, like if someone's selling cosmetics, like if your consumer likes that product, they would purchase it again and again. They do tell people about it as well. So the repeat purchases would be higher in such categories, and the quicker. And it's also kind of like a PMF sort of a thing. If your repeat purchases are higher in early days, you know that people are enjoying your product. So you just understand the customer and kind of like go from there.
Right, I think that answers the question. Another anonymous attendee asks us, which is a very interesting question. It's how do we reduce cash on delivery orders? I would like to make it a little more difficult for you with how do Shopify users who do not get the opportunity to have prepaid discounts, how do they reduce cash on delivery orders? I'm sorry, Anshuk, I'm sorry, Naman.
So I'll take the first stab on this question. It's great that people are thinking about it from very early on in their life cycle, because that's how you would build those processes to kind of have more online first orders. I think, again, like first understand at what point does it not make sense for you to offer COD at all. Like we have seen that brands experiment with a limit on COD, that if you purchase something less than $200 and $500 or so on, then the cash on delivery option is not there with you at all, right? So play around with that limit, try to figure out where you just end up losing a lot of customers and it doesn't make sense and you have to offer them all the payment methods, versus where you can kind of push the customer just by having these artificial mechanisms in place, that there's if someone's buying like a 400 rupees product from you, you don't offer them COD, right? Just get them to purchase online from you, because mostly it's about trust. Like our prepaid tendencies are higher on Amazon and Flipkart because we just trust them to deliver the product a lot more than a new age brand. So once you're able to create that trust, you'll see that prepaid ideally should be very high in your repeat purchases, right? So like play around with that limit that you set for your orders. And then of course, like there would be certain, it also depends on your storefront, what kind of discounts and all you can offer. Nowadays, a lot of courier companies are also supporting that even in transit stage, you can convert an order from COD to prepaid. So we have got flows implemented with companies like Farmeasy, 1MG, where during in transit, you can send out a link to end customer. The customer can pay for the order online, and you get the money a lot faster than your COD reconciliation cycle. So that helps with your working capital as well. Anshuk, if you want to add to that.
Yes, so I think I just want to add two things from a marketing perspective. One, some of the brands we work with try to switch off COD completely. Right? They said that, look, we want to move to online only. But we saw that the conversion rates actually dip significantly, because customers today, when they go to DTC websites, they by default have an expectation of COD. Plus, many of those websites may not be the brands may not be very big brands. So customers don't have that kind of trust. So what we saw was, when you switch off COD, conversion rates drop by like 70%, as high as 70%, which effectively means that your marketing cost becomes 3x. So if you're earlier getting a customer for 500, now you're getting it for 1500. So it becomes highly unviable to do that, right? So if you cannot switch off COD, how do you reduce COD? What we have seen is 2-3 things. One, what you mentioned, Naman, made a lot of sense, that when you get a COD order, I've seen a lot of customers who prompt those COD customers to actually pay online. It could be done via WhatsApp. In some cases, if it's a high AOV purchase, you could also do it over calls, where you can offer some additional incentives to customers, that if you pay online, you might get 5% discount, right? Now, Anisha also mentioned specifically for Shopify, because Shopify on its $29 plan may not have an option to customize the checkout page. But if you do have an option to customize either on Magento WooCommerce or on the upgraded Shopify plan, then offering like a 5% discount to online orders you've usually seen also works quite well. A lot of people get swayed from doing COD to online to get that additional 5% off. Whatever be the case, what we highly recommend is you set the expectations correctly in the ad copy. So because in marketing, there is one rule which we typically follow, is what you see on the ad copy is what you get on the website. So if you're offering a discount on online, do mention in the ad copy. If you're, let's say for whatever reason, you're not offering COD at all, then I would highly recommend you to mention that on the ad copy also, because we want to get people with the right mindset, right, on the website. Those are the people which convert the best. So those were the few points from my side. Over to you, Anisha.
That answers my question, and that answers the audience attendees' question too. With that, we've come to the end of this webinar. A vote of thanks to you, Anshuk. A vote of thanks to you, Naman. Really insightful session. We've learned a lot of key pointers around how do we control our team, about how do we reduce cash on delivery. Somebody asked in the chat box below if we'd be sharing the recording of the session. Yes, we'd be sharing the recording of the session. So yes, that was pretty much it. Thanks to all the attendees over here. Thanks for sitting by. Thanks for asking so many questions. a recording would be shared to you guys. And if you want to connect with us, we've shared the link in the chat box below. You can reach out to us at www.adyogi.com. You can reach out to the Clickpost team by www.clickpost.ai. The details are mentioned in the chat box below. Yes, so thanks a lot. My name is Anisha. Looking forward to collaborate more with the Clickpost team. And yes, bye everyone.
Thanks everyone. Look forward to connecting on LinkedIn and other channels. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Naman. There are a couple of unanswered questions. So Anisha, let's just reach out to all the attendees with answers to those questions. I know we could not cover all the questions today.
Definitely, we do that.
Bye-bye. Bye everyone.
Have a great day.